What is up, my crazy Sims? Today, we are going to be getting radioactive. You see, in the last episode, we started going into the end game, which is getting this all the mod star. But in order to get it, we've got to do a lot of stuff, namely filling in these 8 squares that we have yet to finish, which are the hardest parts of this entire game. And today, we're going to take one giant leap forward by getting ourselves into Mekanism reactors. You see, I've got this giant hole here, and I'm going to fill it up with a fission reactor. And it's going to help us get polonium and plutonium, which are the key ingredients for just about every item we have left for the star. But it's going to be a rocky road. We got to do a lot of stuff to get there. All right, to get us started, I'm going to start off actually by making the reactor itself. And then I'm going to get into how to fuel it, because that is going to be the most difficult part. All right, to start us off, we're going to need a lot of these fission reactor casings. This says 53 and 41 glass, but I'm going to make mine a little different. So I'm going to need a lot more than that. But this will make us just a 5x5 reactor. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come over here. I'm going to start making some reactors. I think I'm going to need a stack and a half, maybe. I'm going to need 4 of these fission reactor ports. All right, to start us off, I have a bunch of these casings here, and I put down some ports, some fission reactor ports. I'll go over those in just a minute. But first, we are going to be placing, I've got a 5x5 hole right here. We're going to be placing it, filling it entirely with casings, just about. Filling all the walls with casings. Nice, had one left over. All right, now we're going to need some reactor glass. All right, so we got some reactor glass. We only need 9 of it. Well, not even that. We'll take these 2 out. And for the last bit, we're going to place these reactor ports. And the very last thing we need to do is we need to get some of these fission fuel assemblers, which is not hard to do. We just got to make a couple chemical tanks. We need 2 of those. Those need 2 assembly rods. We're also going to need a control rod assembly. Alright, so we got everything placed down, and you'll know that's done when it sparks red like that. Now we can look in here and we can see all the stuff. It's not running right now because we need fuel. And now comes the hard part of the fission reactor. So in order to power this thing, you're going to need what is called Fissile Fuel. And Fissile Fuel is really hard to get. It takes this very long process. And oh my gosh, we're going to be doing a lot. We're going to need sulfur. We're going to need fluorite. We're going to need uranium. We're going to combine all of that together with a bunch of other chemicals. It'll finally, at the very end, make fissile fuel, which will power our reactor, which will give us polonium and plutonium. So let's get into it. The first thing we're going to need is one of these chemical oxidizers. Luckily, I already have one. I actually need 2 of these eventually. So I got one. Now let's make ourselves another one. All right, we got 2 chemical oxidizers. Next, we're going to need 3 chemical infusers. Already have one right here. Grab it and let's make 2 more. We're going to need some more gas canisters. There we go. Got 3 chemical infusers. And now we're going to need what is called a rotary condensator. So we're going to need a couple things for that. We're going to need an energy tablet, which is not hard to get, thankfully. We're going to need basic fluid tank. And we're going to need a basic chemical tank. And that'll get us rotary condensator. See, one of those. Next, we're going to need a chemical dissolution chamber, which is fairly difficult to get. It's going to require you to go kind of deep into Mekanism in order to get all the things that you need. Because you're going to need this refined obsidian, ultimate control circuits, which is pretty deep in there. Luckily, we only need 1 of them, though. Get that? Next, we're going to need an enrichment chamber, which is, thankfully, a little bit easier to get. You can get this pretty much at the start of Mekanism. Get one of those. Now we're going to need what is called an electrolytic separator, which isn't too hard to get. You are going to need some dust, though. And blam, let's just get that. And finally, we're going to need what is called an Isotopic Centrifuge, which again is a little difficult to get, requiring some ultimate control circuits. And now comes the fun part, mashing all of this together to make a single line of stuff. So where am I going to put this? I don't know. All right, so first things first, we're going to have to put our system down here, or refined storage system. So let's get that and put it up in our transmitter. Now I have access to our storage down here. The first thing to do is we're going to need to take our chemical oxidizer here and just place it down. There we go. And what this is going to do is this is going to take we're going to supply it with sulfur. All right, so I had to do a little bit of work, sadly, but got it working. I got it working. So what we're going to do is we're going to take down the very first step in our process is to take sulfur dust and turn it into some other stuff. And how we do that is this chemical oxidizer right here. We're going to take sulfur dust, which we have a bunch of sulfur. So how I turn my sulfur into sulfur dust is with a pulverizer from the thermal series. But you can do it however you want to. There's a whole process to it and other ways. What we're going to do is we're going to put sulfur dust right there. I have a crafting upgrade to make it craft sulfur dust, and it's going to go into here, and it's just going to start being oxidized. It's going to turn into sulfur dioxide. This is where our chemical infuser comes into play. We're going to place it down where it's going to take the sulfur dioxide that we're making from the chemical oxidizer, and it's going to take it with some oxygen and turn it into sulfur trioxide. But first, we got to give it some oxygen. And how we do that is we're going to have to use a sink, which is just an infinite water source in this mod pack, and an electrolytic separator. We need a couple sinks. Just put it in the ground. All right, so we're going to place our sink there, and we're going to need our electrolytic separator right there. There we go. And we're just going to need a fluid pipe. So we got our sink pumping water into our electrolytic separator here, which is going to be turning the water into hydrogen and oxygen. And we want the oxygen to be pumped out the back. And this has to accept it. Get some oxygen, and it's going to take the oxygen and sulfur dioxide, and it's going to turn it to sulfur trioxide. And then we're going to take that sulfur trioxide and pump it into another chemical infuser. Just place it down right there. But these guys get out of my way, dude. Like, there we go. I don't need you guys here. So we got our sulfur trioxide pumped into another chemical infuser. Next thing we need to do is place down this rotary condensator. It's very long word. And what we're going to do is we're going to pump some water into it. Just like that. Gotta accept it first. So with the rotary condensator, what it does is it takes a liquid and turns it into gas, and vice versa. So what we're going to need to do is this side is gas, which is currently filling up with water vapor, and this side is liquid, which is water. If you want to do it the other way around, turn the water vapor back into water or a gas into a liquid, hit this toggle operation. It flips it around, and it messes everything up for me. But now what we're gonna do is we're gonna come over here. We're full of sulfur trioxide. We're gonna need to open up the SAD config and front. We're gonna set the output. We need to do it input. So it's being filled with water vapor and sulfur trioxide, and that is gonna make some sulfuric acid. Next thing we're going to need to do is to make a chemical dissolution chamber. What this is going to do is going to take our sulfuric acid, and we are going to supply it with some fluorite, and it's going to make hydrofluoric acid. I think that's how it works. We'll have to see. But what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to take our system over here, and we're going to need to take our cable, run it on along here. Make sure this is accepting items from the top, which it is. We've got loads of fluorite set up in my mystical agriculture fund. There we go. Fluorite set in there. Now we just got to get it to accept this sulfuric acid. So we're going to set this to pump the acid out to the left, and this is going to accept it from the right. There we go. Sulfuric acid, and it's going to turn itself into hydrofluoric acid. Look at that. Next thing we're going to need to do, oh my gosh, this process is so long. Next thing we're going to need to do is we're actually going to need to set up a different system off to the side over here. And this is where our other chemical oxidizer comes into play. So we're going to set this up right here. We're going to get our system back on over here. We got to supply it with some power. All right, so the next thing we need to do for this secondary system is we're going to need to put an enrichment chamber down. Got to supply power first, and enrichment chamber. And what we're going to do is we're going to put some input in there, and we're going to use some uranium in it. Yes, this is the same uranium that is being used to power our bigger reactor. But hopefully I'll have enough. What this is going to do is going to take our uranium ingots and it's going to turn it into yellow cake uranium. Next thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to take our yellow cake uranium and we're going to need to pump it into this chemical oxidizer. So output, let's see, auto eject on. There we go. It's going to be pumped into there, and it's going to make us uranium oxide. Then we're going to take that uranium oxide and we're going to pump it into a chemical infuser. This chemical infuser is going to take the uranium oxide and the hydrofluoric acid, and it's going to turn it into Fissile Fuel. Just got to set it up right. Or it's going to turn into uranium hexafluoride, which is its whole own thing. And we're going to take that uranium hexafluoride that we're producing and we're going to pump it into this isotopic centrifuge. And look at that. We are currently making fissile fuel. It took me an hour to do. The whole thing took me an hour to do. Oh my gosh. This is so crazy. Now that we got that done, let's go over this reactor, the fission reactor. So you saw me build it, and you saw me put that single rod in the center. What that is that's a fuel rod. The reactor is going to pump in some fissile fuel. It's going to mix with the water and do some crazy junk reactor stuff. And it's going to make nuclear waste, which is how we get our polonium and plutonium. But how we do that is we have these reactor ports. I've got 4 of them on here. One for fissile fuel to input it to. One to output nuclear waste. I have one in the back to import coolant, which is just water. You could also use sodium. It's more efficient, but I don't want to. I don't really care that much about it. And we have another one in the back to output heated coolant, which is used in the Mekanism turbine. But we're not going to be doing that because it's a good power generator, but we don't need that. So what we're going to do with that is I'm just going to hopefully just throw it away. So we're going to get ourselves one of these ultimate trash cans, which can destroy anything put into it. Just gonna avoid it. This is set to output cooling. Input only, output waste, output coolant. Yes. I'm gonna change this to accept that. Now that we have our reactor set up, let's get it hooked up to our fissile fuel. We're gonna need these pressurized tubes, which is used to pump gas into things. And there we go. It's currently pumping fissile fuel into, wow, a lot of fissile fuel. Into the fission reactor. And we could activate it right now, but we're not going to because we have some other stuff that we need to do. Namely, this Solar Neutron Activator and one more isotopic centrifuge. It's pretty hard to get. You gotta be very deep into Mekanism to get it. You need this HDPE sheet mainly, which is not the easiest to get. You need pellets, which you get from pressurized reaction chamber, which is liquid ethylene. It's a lot of work to get to the Solar Neutron Activator. But we got it, so let's make it real fast. There we go. Now what this does is it takes sunlight and it's going to turn our nuclear waste that we're going to be producing and it's going to turn it into polonium. And we're also going to have a isotopic centrifuge to pump our nuclear waste into, and it's going to turn that into plutonium, which I don't actually think we need. Let me look that up real fast. We're going to need it. Yeah, we're going to need it. We're going to need a lot of it. There we go. Our Solar Neutron Activator. Now, the keen-eyed among you might be thinking, wait a minute, there's no sun in here. And you're right, there is no sun. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to take this bad boy and we are going to go to a brand spanking new dimension. This is the blue skies dimension, the Everbright, I think is what it's called, the Everbright dimension. This is actually where my friend Tukanet has his entire setup at. His whole fusion setup is set up right here. He went a lot crazier than I did. He built a 11 by 11 by 11. I just have a 5 by 5 by 5. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to borrow a little bit of the space and I'm going to place down my Solar Neutron Activator here. The reason why I chose this dimension is because the sun never sets. It is always going to be sunny, which means that this Solar Neutron Activator is always going to be working, which is exactly what we need. So let me just find a place to put this down at. Maybe I can borrow a little bit of his space right here. I don't think he'll mind. The only thing about placing this here in this dimension is we're gonna have to figure out a way to pipe our stuff into this dimension, which actually Mekanism has a wonderful way to do that, which I have yet to get into, and I'm really excited to get into it. And it's called the Quantum Entangleporter. And we're gonna need 2 of these, one for input and one for output. All right, so we got our Quantum Entangleporter and our Solar Neutron Activator set up just right here. So now what we need to do is we need to go place this on the other end on our fission reactor. Yeah, that's good. Okay, let's get this bad boy running, shall we? Hit the activate button real fast. Ooh, listen to that baby purr. Getting a lot of heated coolant. That's not good. Should be pumping that out. There we go. We had to use a pressure tube for the coolant. Also not pumping out nuclear waste, which is quite infuriating. Alright guys, so we finally figured out how to do this. It was a pain, but I did it. So what I did, because it was incredibly hard to figure out how to use the Entangleporter, I couldn't get it to work for some reason. I don't know why. It just wouldn't pump in the gas. I have no idea why it wouldn't pump in the nuclear waste to the entangler. I just ended up using one of these tanks, an ender tank. We finally got it. Oh, it's such a pain in the rear end. Alright guys, so we got our fission reactor piping out our nuclear waste into these ender tanks. I couldn't use the entangler porters for some reason. I have no idea why. It just was not letting me pump the nuclear waste into the entangler porter. So we ended up using these fission tanks, or these ender tanks I should say. And what it's going to do is just going to take the nuclear waste and pump it right on into this Solar Neutron Activator. And look, now we have 40 millibuckets of polonium, which is super awesome. And we're also going to get it to pump into this Isotopic Centrifuge, and it's going to start making plutonium. All we got to do now is give it an upgrade. Now that's doing its thing. Let's go over here and let's mess with a little bit of stuff. As you can see, I am making tons of Fissile Fuel. I am not running out of it. So what we're going to do is we are going to adjust our burn rate. So our burn rate right now is 0.1 millibuckets per tick. What we are going to do is we're going to our information tab, going down here to set rate limit. Our max burn rate is 2 millibuckets. So what we're going to do is we're just going to set it to 1, about half. There we go. And what it's going to do is it's going to produce a lot more nuclear waste. And it's going to use a lot more fuel. It's going to use 10 times as much fuel. But it's going to produce 10 times as much waste. So, it's going to be a lot faster. Whoa, look at that radiation. That's not good. Alright guys, and the very last thing for us to do is to create a fail-safe switch, which is not hard to do. We just need to clear out a little room back here to get it moving. So what we're going to do, for the failsafe switch, we're going to need some of these Fission Reactor logic adapters. We're going to need 2 of them? Yeah, we need 2 of them. Well, let's go into our nifty JEI. There we go, we just need 2 of them, so let's get one. Now we're just going to need redstone dust, gravel or sand, a piston, and an observer. And we're just going to have to break this real fast. Whoops. Alright guys, so I just set up this nice little neat failsafe switch right here. And what it's going to do is I have 2 of these logic adapters, one right here and one right behind this observer. So we're going to look at this one right here, this Fission Reactor logic adapter. We are going to set it to damage critical. And what that's going to do is whenever the reactor reaches like a critical damage level, which means it's like gonna explode and like ruin everything, it's gonna output a redstone signal, which we have it connected to this piston, which is gonna send a sand block up to this observer. And what it's going to do is there is a logic adapter right behind it, and it is set to activation, which means once it receives a redstone signal, it'll either activate or deactivate. Yeah, I think it's just going to deactivate it. Yeah, it's going to activate it when powered and deactivate it when unpowered. So what it's going to do is it's going to send the sand block up real fast. It's going to power it real quick, and then the sand block's going to fall and it's going to unpower it real quick, which will just shut off the machine. So what this little failsafe switch is set up to do is to basically prevent this thing from exploding. When it's about to explode, it'll just shut it off, which we really need that because I do not want it to explode. That would be very not good. And it'll only explode if, let's say, this heated coolant gets too hot, or it gets too high, which it's not going to, or this waste tank gets too high, which it is also not going to do, or it just gets too hot, which it shouldn't. And since we're here, our burn rate is set to 1 millibucket per tick, which I set it to that. Let's try to set it to its maximum of 2 millibuckets per tick, which is the max burn rate. Oh, it's using a lot of water. Set it back to 1. Let's not do that. That's not good. Yeah, I think we're just gonna have to stick with the 1 millibucket per tick, which I mean isn't bad. It's producing a good amount. Let's actually go check on that. Check on how our thing's producing. Look at that. We have 447 millibuckets of polonium, which isn't even one thing. Oh, it's going to take forever. But anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode of figuring out how to make a fission reactor in Minecraft. If you did enjoy it, come back and see more. And I will see you guys in the next episode, where I will be diving deeper into this Mekanism jungle. Or hopefully we'll be able to do a lot more stuff. Anyways, I will see you guys in the next episode. Bye-bye.